episode of Asa Law Talk Volume 6, where we discuss legal issues in a way that engaging, insightful, and of course, easy to understand. This program is proudly presented by the English Development Division of Asa Local Chapter Universitas Brawijaya. It feels so good to be able to greet all of you again. Around 2 months ago, in Volume 5, we discussed about agrarian conflict and the protection of indigenous people's rights. That episode was such a valuable discussion, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. My name is Adinda.
And I'm Tata. For those of you tuning in for the first time, welcome to the Asa Local family. And for our loyal listeners, you already know how it goes here. We pick a topic, dive deep into it, and bring in the best people to share their knowledge with us. Today, we are going to talk about a topic that is not only relevant but also deeply connected to Indonesia's constitutional law. So, who is curious about today's topic? Okay, so today's topic is standing between law and politics, the role of the president's prerogative rights for abolition and amnesty. This is also the main theme of Also Legal English Handbook Volume 13, which highlight legal framework and implementation of the president's prerogative rights.
And of course, we won't be discussing this alone. We are honored to be joined by a special guest, an expert who truly understands this field, Mr. Reza. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Reza. Hello, sir. Thank you so much for joining us in Osalo Talk Volume 6. To start, how are you today?
Yeah, gladly. Thank you for welcoming to me and great meetings for you all. Of course, uh, in Malang we have some rainy season, right? In the end of the year, in this 2025. So you feel cold, you feel so freezing, you name it. But we have always a warm heart to welcome you all.
Okay, glad to hear that, sir. Are you ready to start today's session, sir?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, let's move on to the first question. Sir, as we know, a few months ago, there were viral cases of the president using his prerogative rights. Therefore, could you explain to our listeners what are the prerogative rights along with the history and philosophical background on it?
Okay, that's a remarkable question, of course, in our constitutional in the constitutional perspective, of course. First, it's a fundamental one for understanding to the roots of the constitutional law. Let's start step by step first, so we can unpack what prerogative rights are and the trace their historical and philosophical evolution, of course. First, maybe Thomas Lembong, right? Thomas Lembong cases, and that's so viral that how the president used his power to give the prerogative rights. For the first, our understanding of basically from definition, prerogative rights is often called the royal prerogative in English tradition, of course. So that's refer to a residual power of the crown. So it might be king or queen who use his or her power, who originally belonging to the monarch, but later limited. So there are many the huge power, and then in by the time flows, it will be limited, regulated, and transferred to government institutions through the constitutional development. Of course, in nowadays, we know that executive power derived from custom and common law, not from the statute. The classic example included the right to declare of war or make peace for the first, and the second is the issuing the passport, and the third is the appointment of ministries and judges, and the last, the conduct the foreign affair. That's the huge power of presidential in Indonesia, right? In our presidency, that the prerogative rights, and then the essentially they are discretionary powers, of course, once considered personal to the sovereignty. but now exercised by executive government in the name of the state. That's from the that from the definition first, and then the historical development is will be trajectory briefly. So long to short story. In medieval period, is feudal monarchy, and then the 17th century constitutional crisis. Of course, there are many kingdom will be apply about the prerogative rights, and then the modern constitutional system. Maybe I will explain the last about concerning the modern constitutional system. In modern constitutional monarchies, like in the UK, maybe prerogative power persists but are conventionally exercised by ministers, not the monarch personally. So it refers to king or queen. In a republic, similar with executive discretionary power. Like I said before, is exists under constitutional authority through typically codified. So maybe in the constitutional rights, the president we have or the chief of the state have the huge power uh, from the election. And then from the philosophical, it is concerned about natural law and defined rights from the medieval and early modern. And then there are many scholars, I think. There are many scholars about the prerogative rights. From the first, Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and then Montesquieu. Of course, in the last, about the modern constitutionalism. About modern constitutionalism is the prerogative evolved into executive discretion under the legal limits. You have to underline it and be bold it under legal limits. The rule of law principle in 19th century concerning to AVDC, sorry, holds that no one, not even the government, is above the law. And yet, government retain necessary discretion. Example, about concerning our healthy issues in 2020, about COVID-19, there are emergency power who give in Joko Widodo's presidency to echoing Locke pragmatic view. So, of course, contemporary relevance is today prerogative power persists but under the legal and political accountability. So you have to make it right about prerogative power under the legal and political accountability.
Yay, that is truly interesting, right?
Huh?
I'm beginning to get curious, as we know that not only amnesty and abolition is connected to constitutional law, but also criminal law. Can you please explain, sir, what is the connection between them?
Okay. We talk about the prerogative power that transform in, like you said before, abolition, amnesty, and then etc. It is, of course, not only constitutional perspective, but it politically and of course in penal code. Of course, we don't have to separate them, but we have to know our scope, especially the comparison like in the UK, in the United States, including in Indonesia. Of course, how you do the political rights of the presidency under Article 22. Presidential Perpu on government regulation in light of law, like Articles 10 and 15. So the key is in executive power resemble prerogative functionally. That must be underlined that the source of amnesty and abolition that refers to prerogative power from the presidency. So I mean there are a lot of thinker or legal scholar like I said, like Thomas Hobbes and John Locke, Montesquieu, and AVDC. Like I said, the separation power limits the prerogative, and then rule of law constrain the prerogative. So not only constitutional in under our constitution in 1945 constitution, but there are many transform the prerogative itself.
Okay, that's so interesting. I got more excited. Do you excited in that? Okay. Okay, so the next question relates to how the prerogative right is used in the real cases. As we know, there were already cases of the president using its prerogative rights. Can you give us some cases and how amnesty and abolition is implemented, sir?
Okay. Maybe we talk about constitutional criminal interdependence, right? Of course, for like using some cases in prerogative rights and amnesty and abolition. There are many of them. But in the last time we know about the Thomas Lembong, maybe it become viral. It is
Yeah.
just not like you know there is something wrong with our system in criminal system,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think the system there are in bahasa we know is sprindik, right? Surat perintah pemberhentian penyidikan. Nah, in bahasa we have to do it. It is not only from presidency power, but our jaksa agung in bahasa they have SP3 surat perintah pemberhentian penyidikan. Because the system is developed with our criminal and constitutional, of course, that profound with prerogative rights from the president. Because our jaksa agung, we have transformed about how to you be the chief of kejaksaan. Like yeah, maybe SP3 is more elegant way rather than prerogative rights, maybe because we have known there are something wrong with this case or Thomas Lembong case, right? If
Yes.
I show you about a lot of in the past, it will become dizzy because we will have a lot of different time, different political, different perspective. So I think maybe in nowadays, maybe Thomas Lembong is the suitable cases for it.
That's actually a new information for
Mm.
us, yeah, Pa? Yeah. Okay, sir. Let's jump into the next question. We have known that to use prerogative rights, you need to use it in accordance with our constitutional law. But how does the limitation for prerogative rights work?
Okay. Like the first, like I said, and there are many ways and perspective to limitation about the presidency power, included in prerogative power, right? But it is, of course, about in checks and balances system in democracy state, democracy and constitutionalism. It depends on you how you see or how you get the project about some case. First, how the limitation are is basically from the government itself, from our like House of Representative, that how you give the president abolition and amnesty. Of course, like say like tax amnesty, you have to do in rather in act, that profound in between House of Representative and the president itself. That's in quotes that in tax scheme, it has a lot of thing that Joko Widodo's time done it. Because how you do the tax amnesty, it's only by collecting data. That's the primary objective. So how you use tax amnesty, you have to collect the all data, the comprehensive data. That's the main objective. And then the secondary objective is maybe you will lose some found maybe for the tax, but in the next year it will be increased dramatically. As we know, the tax amnesty will hold by COVID-19. That's from the tax amnesty. How about the abolition and amnesty for some cases? Of course, the presidency have to permit to House of Representatives, of course. Especially after have the permit, the prosecutor, the chief of prosecutor will be hold the cases. Like I said, the chief of prosecutor will be signing about the SP3 in bahasa surat perintah pemberhentian. That's
Okay,
how the prerogative do the limitation, right?
okay. I guess the topic is be more I get exciting. So now we will talk about the consideration of implementing it, sir. Related to the previous question, what are the political and law consideration to implement amnesty and abolition?
The limitation about the prerogative rights it transform become amnesty and abolition. Of course, the consideration not only the constitutional itself, but in criminal and of course politically, yes. The cases like Thomas Lembong cases, it's not only how the structure of our prerogative right will be tested. It difference between like you have the apa ya, you have the you have to do a lot for your country or for your state. Of course, there are incentive, of course. Maybe it's just like I can do, but I think it's Thomas Lembong is more the suitable case because if I give you all about another cases, I mean it's a lot of it thing, but maybe just wait a minute. I will give you like Baik Nuril, the amnesty for Baik Nuril. It is in 2019. The background, I will give you another case. Baik Nuril is a school teacher who was convicted under the Electronic Information and Transaction, in Indonesia in bahasa Undang-Undang ITE,
Yeah.
for allegedly spreading the incident content. And the legal issue is her case gained public sympathy as she had actually recorded sexual harassment under President Joko Widodo presidency granted amnesty through the president decree that have after approval by our House Representative. So the constitutional process that initiated by the president, and then the House of Representatives is approval obtained. Verse 2 in our Undang-Undang Dasar Negara Republik Indonesia tahun 1945, and the decree annulled her criminal conviction and erased legal consequences. So maybe let's show that humanitarian and justice corrective function for amnesty. that must be underlined: humanitarian and justice corrective. And then for the reinforce to the principle that prerogative powers are not arbitrary, but guided by legal and political checks. Guided by legal and political checks. It will be always not only criminal, not always constitutional, not always in political, but the three of them will be fusion, like the prerogative rights will be fusion and transformed to be amnesty and abolition. So maybe another cases about amnesty for Papuan political prisoner who will happen in 2021 and 22. Sorry, 2022. There are many Papuan activists that give and get amnesty from Joko Widodo's presidency. And then about the abolition for the political crimes, it has been done in Indonesia in 1940s until 1960s. There are many political crimes. There are many, like the regime of how you do the fight of GST G30 SPKI, and then what else? You name it. In the first presidency, in the first our presidency under Sukarno as our president for the first time.
That is super interesting. I didn't think about it that way before. That is such a good point. Thank you, sir. Okay. But before we realize it, we are about to enter the last questions that will conclude this discussion session. Namely, what concrete steps should be taken by the government, civil society, and legal practitioners to ensure that the use of prerogative rights is just and accountable?
Of course, I think as we are in the civilian, we have to do the like you know meaningful participation, of course, in every step by step, in every single step. I mean, and then of course how to do. Maybe in our lecture, maybe in our class will be discussed. Please, you have to discuss everything in the class, because in the class you have to make mistake, a lot of mistake. But in after class, you have proven. I mean, you do not have to do the mistake, because you do the mistake in our class, in our session. It is okay. It is not just you will be. I mean, you have to do as a prison now. Just don't prison your mind. Just be critically. I think maybe in another case, another a bunch of you know the picture of our society is more delightful today, or more colorful today, because there are not only in 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 Jakarta or epicentrum area, but in many, like in Papua, in our friends Papua, Maluku, and then NTB, is, yeah, NTT, Bali, even Bali. There are many something wrong in Bali. So if how to do the prerogative rights, you have to do the critically thinking first. Just asking how, sorry, just asking first why, and then how. For the first time, you have to do the questioning something. You have to first why, and then the second is how.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Reza, for sharing your insights regarding the role of the president prerogative rights for abolition and amnesty. Maybe that's the last question for today's Law Talk. And before I end today's Law Talk, do you have anything to say? Perhaps a closing statement for our listeners today, sir?
Mm, just be wild in your mind. Just be
Hmm.
critic in your mind. Critically thinking, of course. But don't forget who you are, because it will be, don't prison your mind and don't prison your thought, because it will be something valuable in the future, even for this next second, I think. It will be, oh, this a new one. Don't be just like the sideful, or maybe for the supporter, but you have to do the critical thinking. It first time you have to do in your life, because it will be such a wonderful life if you have done the critical thinking and critical mind.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for the amazing closing statement. So, as we wrap things up in today's discussion, it is clear that the President's prerogative rights for abolition and amnesty fundamentally operate at this complex intersection, serving as powerful tools that are both grounded in law and profoundly political in their application, demanding a constant, careful navigation between formal legal boundaries and the broader consideration of justice, mercy, and national interest.
All right, also Jens, the material today is very interesting and has provided us with a lot of new knowledge. In relation to that, what is your opinion about our discussion topic this time, Tata? Especially concerning the considerations of implementing amnesty and abolition, which is very important as we have discussed earlier.
Okay, first of all, I think the discussion today is so insightful and I get so excited. So, I think they require balancing the principle of the rule of law and the need for accountability against the often competing pragmatic goal of national reconciliation and future stability. This illustrates that such prerogatives are not purely legal mechanisms. They are instruments that inherently operate at the intersection of law, politics, and ethics.
That is so true, and it is precisely this difficult balancing act that makes the use of these prerogatives so contentious and consequential. Any decision inevitably involves a trade-off weighing the immediate tangible value of justice and accountability against the often less certain long-term necessity of peace and national unity. There is rarely a perfect answer that satisfies both demands completely.
I think all the talks today really give us new insight and knowledge about the president's prerogative rights and how amnesty and abolition is implemented. Surely, the material we discussed earlier also became meaningful knowledge for loyal listeners of the ALSA Law Talk. Before closing this podcast, I would like to thank Mr. Reza for being our special guest and sharing his thoughts on ALSA Law Talk Volume 6. We have come to the end this activity, but don't be sad. We will back again in Also Low Talk Volume 7, which will certainly discuss other interesting and useful topics. Let's end here. Wherever you are, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to you, Alsa Ian.